North Main, you've likely noticed how well kept the property is. The grass is always green and the flower beds are always well kept and in bloom. What you see on the outside is exactly what you'll find inside. Care and attention to detail. Exactly what you want when you're dealing with one of your most important senses, your hearing. Dr. Daines' love and care for the community has always gone beyond the front steps at Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology. So if you're not hearing as well as you used to, stop in at 485 North Main in Logan or visit them online at cachehearing.com.
KBNU News Time is 4:05. Food brings people together, and especially tacos. The second annual Tacos Together Summer Bash and Office Party will be held tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Rice-Eccles Stadium at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. They will gather for fun and for a cause, according to CEO and founder Paul Shin, as the networking party, as he refers to it, will bring attention and assistance for refugees in the state. On KBNU's For the People program on Tuesday, he talked about how he came up with the idea for Tacos Together.
One day I took my kids out to the playground, and my wife made me promise not to be on my phone. I have 4 kids. And it was amazing, right? Within 10 minutes, they had found new friends, right? They were going off to space together. One of them was, setting up some sort of store. And it was just so cool. And it hit me like, man, human connection is like innately built inside of us. Like we all want it. We all want to feel connected.
Shin said it made him ask, where's the playground for adults where they can get together and connect with others regardless of someone's title, net worth, or experience? He said originally they did it just to have fun and get people together, which, of course, is still the case.
This Thursday, we are featuring a nonprofit. So every event we do, we rotate the nonprofit. This one's called Refugee Soccer, founded by a good guy, Adam Miles. And, so Utah being kind of a refugee state or an asylum state, we get lots of refugees that come in. And he realized that a lot of times the languages, the cultures were huge barriers, but almost everywhere in the world, soccer is something that can help unify people.
Sure.
And so he'll actually be bringing some of the refugee families out to the event.
Also, Utah Refugees is another organization that will be spotlighted. Activities include soccer, taking a shot at a field goal, and 6 other mini activities. You can get more details at tacostogether.com. And 2 employees of Hidden Hollow Care Center in Orem have been charged with aggravated abuse following a patient's suicide in 2022. The Utah Attorney General's office filed 1 count of third-degree felony charges against Amy Lauritsen and Letitia Odunza on June 22nd. According to court documents, Lauritsen, the center director of nursing, allegedly administered borrowed medication to the patient who had schizophrenia. She allegedly failed to provide the full prescribed dosage and neglected to schedule necessary medical evaluations. The patient, who had a history of suicidal behavior, died after being struck by a vehicle in the center's parking lot. Orem Police Department ruled the incident as a suicide. The Attorney General's office claims Lauritsen and Odunza, a Hidden Hollow administrator, endanger the patient's health by mismanaging medications and neglecting proper follow-up on suicidal behaviors. KBNU News Time is 4:08. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
Keeping you informed 24/7. News Talk KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
The results are in for the 2023 Best of Northern Utah contest.
Best of Northern Utah.
Pick up your free copy of the Winners Magazine. Go to bestofnorthernutah.com to find magazine pickup locations. Nearly 700,000 votes were cast to determine gold and silver winners. Help us recognize these businesses and let's support all of our local businesses by shopping local. Thank you for participating in the 2023 Best of Northern Utah contest.
Best of Northern Utah.
My friend John Hansen at the Duck Hunter has constantly educated you about the need for ductwork cleaning in your home. But what about your cabin or summer home outside the valley? You need that home's ductwork cleaned too. With high pollen counts in the mountains, dust always in the wind, and road construction ever present, the old adage of out of sight, out of mind is bad. Give the Duck Hunter a call at 770-4813 to clean out those dirty ducts in your summer home.
We are the Duck Hunter. Breathe better, save money, protect your home. We are the Duck Hunter.
For the people.
We are waiting with bated breath for news from the Cash Republican Party meeting an executive committee tonight.
With Jason Williams.
And I'm really excited about this next segment. We have two guests here in studio. We're going to talk about something that we've talked about many times here on the show, but from a bit of a different angle.
Weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 a.m. and 102 FM.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People, Wednesday, June 28th. I'm Jason Williams. Bill Walter here in the studio as well. A spill, well, a train derailment and bridge collapse along the Yellowstone River, dumping asphalt and sulfur into the river, is drawing more scrutiny to a planned oil and gas rail line through Utah and Colorado, something Utah lawmakers tried in various ways they could to fast track. It was actually approved recently by the Biden administration, and this isn't something that will be up and running, by the end of this year, but the plan is moving ahead, and it would be the longest rail line for oil and natural gas in U.S. history, about 88 miles. Much of it following the Colorado River, in some places just feet away from the Colorado River. And, of course, the last couple of years we've gotten, all of us, a big awakening and education on the importance of the Colorado River and what its water means, what the loss of its water means, rather, for most of the southern half of Utah, but also 5 other states. And so the spill along the Yellowstone River in Montana is attracting attention from critics of Utah's plan, saying, you put this river at risk. A spill like this in the Colorado River would make the water for a time unusable, and Utah doesn't really have that kind of leeway. So a debate over that launched into the Twitterverse again today after photos from the Yellowstone River spill circulated around Utah lawmakers and political circles. We'll see what happens with that, but we'll get to some of the reaction from Utah lawmakers later on in the show. Fireworks. We're going to be talking about fireworks later. The Salt Lake City mayor announcing today that the city would forego an actual fireworks show for the July 4th and 24th holidays, and instead we'd be using some actually very cool high-tech programmed drone displays to mimic fireworks. They did this in the drought years as well, and the big question was, would they continue it into this year? The mayor making it official today that, at least as far as the city celebration goes, fireworks a thing of the past for the time being. People very upset about this. Some. Others very excited about this. We'll talk a little bit this hour about fireworks, what they mean as far as pollution goes. Spoiler, the pollution is actually significant and dangerous. They get a pass because it's very temporary, right? A few days before and a few days after the 4th holiday, and here in Utah, the 24th as well. And then that's it. But during those times, the effects of the firework pollution are actually, well, I was surprised at what I read from Utah Department of Health when I asked them to send me some of their research on this. We'll talk about it, but also why people like fireworks, why this was such a polarizing decision by Salt Lake City, and one that should drought continue to be a semi-regular problem here in Utah that we're dealing with, and always the potential for wildfire season to officially kick off on the July 4th holiday. Many years that is the case. There's legitimate concern and legitimate support for big fireworks shows, for ease of access to personal fireworks and a low level of restrictions when possible. Why? Why is this so important to us? We'll talk about it all coming up in a bit. This is a story still developing out of the 2nd Congressional District, but now taking on, again, a statewide interest because of Utah lawmakers' decision to move Election Day to allow for a special election to occur this year as opposed to next spring when it comes to replacing Congressman Chris Stewart, who announced he would be retiring from his role as one of Utah's 4 congressional representatives in September. Utah law requires 90-day periods between filing days, primaries, and general election days, and because of the timing of Stewart's announcement, that wasn't possible. So an election wouldn't have played out to replace him until next spring. That was a no-go for Kevin McCarthy and House Democrats at the federal level, who have just a handful of seats as a majority and not wanting to spare even one or have one sit empty until next spring. A lot of pressure on Utah lawmakers from the National Party, from Kevin McCarthy and others, and they moved Election Day. So municipal elections this year are affected by this. That means instead of the traditional early Tuesday in November, Election Day this year for the municipal races here in Cache Valley and all of northern Utah, all of the state, will actually be the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. And that's what kind of brought everyone into paying attention to this, even though the special election is just to replace a congressional representative in the 2nd District, which is roughly the western or southwestern portion of the state, but it does clip into some of the Wasatch Front because of the gerrymandering and during redistricting. There's like a Four Corners area in Salt Lake, which was a political decision, not a necessary decision. And but primarily this is a district that is far away from us, is my point. The reason it's still in the news is that the Utah GOP held their nominating convention, a hastily called and hastily planned nominating convention. Delegates had about 10 days to vet 13 candidates. 2 dropped out on convention day, so 11 actually took the stage with speeches. And in the 3 rounds of voting, delegates nominated a lawyer who had been part of Congressman Stewart's staff for his entire terms, his entire career so far as a congressional representative. So she's been there a while. Celeste Malloy was nominated by the party. And then the fireworks, figuratively. What originally began as what sounded like sour grapes rumors being spread by the Greg Hughes campaign, because he was the expected winner of convention. I think most people would have predicted that, so it was a surprise upset when Malloy beat him. But Malloy was endorsed by Congressman Stewart himself, and she did campaign hard. And so she campaigned on her Southern Utah connections, basically, and that's where the majority of the district is, and it worked for her. Hughes is a bit more of a Salt Lake City, though in the district, he's more of a Salt Lake City Politico, and that worked against him. So again, it began as what sounded like sour grapes rumor milling from the Hughes campaign and people involved with Greg Hughes, former Speaker of the House Greg Hughes, Utah House, of course. But it's turning into actually something a bit bigger than this, and it comes down to a couple of things: inactive voter status and registration and residency questions, and the bylaws of the Utah GOP itself. What this basically is Malloy's voter registration was marked as inactive in Utah's voter database because she hadn't voted since 2018. So she skipped 20 and 2022 elections, didn't vote, and in Utah that moves you to an inactive voter status. She is still technically registered as a Republican, but inactive. Raised some questions about her registration, and she did again vote in the 2018 election as a registered Republican in Utah, listing at the time an address of a condominium in St. George. What started to draw some attention to this is Malloy backed out of an interview with the Salt Lake Tribune at the last minute, They'd planned to ask her about this, and then on Monday, she visited with a friendly radio host in Salt Lake, someone who knew her well, a friend of hers, and did an interview there instead. That drew some suspicion as well, understandably. And she said in that interview she did not vote in 2020 or 2022 because she worried that her absentee ballot that she would have been sending in from D.C. or Virginia at the time, depending on where they were working that day, that she would have sent that in, and she was worried that it could be flagged as potentially fraudulent and would cause her boss, Congressman Stewart, headaches. That didn't fly with a lot of the media and the Lieutenant Governor's office either, who all basically said, look, this excuse makes no sense. There's no reason an absentee ballot would have been flagged as fraudulent. That is perfectly legal. And most of Congressman Stewart's staff votes exactly that way. So it started to look like she was just making some excuses for not having voted, and everybody started to move on from the story. And then Brian Schott of the Salt Lake Tribune started digging, and he found more. So what it comes down to is that Malloy may be in violation of the party's bylaws, but the objection to that violation had to be raised before the convention gavelled out Saturday, and it was not. This didn't come out until Monday. Iron County election officials told the Tribune that the state regularly submits these inactive voter lists, people who haven't voted in a couple of cycles, federal cycles, to the National Change of Address database. This is all a part of, preventing fraud and things like that. It's a regular practice, not just in Utah. Nothing weird about that at all. But in January, the database indicated that Malloy actually lived in Virginia, not Utah. So, in fact, Schott reports there's little to no evidence that Malloy has lived in Utah or maintained a permanent residence here since she relocated to Arlington, Virginia in 2019 to work for Stewart permanently. And the St. George address that she had listed in 2018 in her Utah voter registration was the only one publicly available until she updated her registration Monday this week after the convention, after she was nominated as the Republican nominee. So some people are reacting to this like, who cares? Which I get. She's obviously a Republican. She worked for Congressman Stewart. She's voted as a Republican her entire life, but didn't vote for several years in a row, which led to inactive voter status. But delegates, most of them Greg Hughes supporters, admittedly, but still they have a point, are saying this is in direct violation with party bylaws. Now, as far as the state and federal laws, she's clear because none of this is a requirement. She does have to be a resident of Utah, permanent resident of Utah, and registered as a Republican or whatever party the candidate is the nominee for before when she's elected. So she has to have a permanent address in Utah and be a registered Republican here in Utah in order to comply with state and federal laws for representing Utah in Congress. And she needs to do that because they moved Election Day the Tuesday before November or before Thanksgiving. So she's got a while on that to be clear on state and federal laws. So we're only talking about party bylaws here, but this was a convention. She is running to be the nominee of that party, and delegates are saying that because she is in violation of the bylaws, she needs to be replaced. The problem is there's no mechanism for this within the Utah GOP platform or bylaw sets. This has never happened before. So there's big pressure on the new chair to do something about this, but he has said basically that they've called an emergency meeting for the Central Committee. That happened last night, and no word has come yet on what was discussed or what they decided. And, Malloy filed for candidacy on June 12th and registered as a Republican on June. And then, the candidate filing period ended, the campaigns played out, and then the convention happened, and she registered as a Republican on June 26th. So, kind of a big deal, kind of not. Again, she's not in violation of state or federal law to run for Congress or even to be elected to Congress should she win. But it appears that the delegates from the Hughes campaign making noise about this have a point. The Utah Republican Party Constitution extends membership to, quote, any resident of the state of Utah who registers to vote as a Republican, which Malloy was not when nominated on Saturday. She was not until Monday. In fact, the Tribune reports she didn't appear in any databases of Republican voters after 2018. So we'll see where it goes. As for the state of Utah, Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson said she didn't have a lot to offer to clarify. She said Utah Code, I won't read the numbers, 28-9-201, outlines the process for declaring candidacy, and there is no requirement for a congressional candidate to be a registered voter at the time of declaring candidacy. Candidates are required to sign an affidavit stating their address, political party, and that they meet the qualifications for office. And you can find the CD2 candidate affidavits here. Henderson said, once again, the qualifications for federal office are governed by the U.S. Constitution, not the state of Utah. So translating that again, Malloy did not break state election law or federal law in any way. The only thing she's in violation of is the bylaws and constitution of the party for which she was just nominated to represent in this special election. We'll see what happens. Becky Edwards and Bruce Hugh, their campaigns are saying they're close to the 7,000 signature threshold. I guarantee one of them's telling the truth, maybe both. Malloy herself, of course, will be on the ballot unless something out of the ordinary happens inside the Utah GOP and they respond to all this by removing her, at which point I don't know what happens. They don't know what happens. There's no mechanism for doing any of this, but the delegates, many delegates at least, are saying the party must respond because they just nominated someone who at the time was not actually a Republican, which I think is a bit of a stretch, but that's the claim they're making. We have the weirdest scandals in Utah. I guess that's a good thing. We'll be back right after this.
Don't let concerns about today's events derail your long-term financial strategy. Edward Jones Financial Advisors can help work with you to understand today's financial landscape and how to be positioned for the long term. Edward Jones can give you the tools for a reasoned, disciplined approach to investing. Get started by calling one of the 7 Edward Jones locations in Cache Valley. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Senior Moments, sponsored by the Empowering Seniors Group on News Talk KVNU.
My name is Bruce Lee. I am here with my co-host Sid Roder. We're here for another fun show.
This radio show is sponsored by the Empowering Seniors Group, which is a group of professionals that has dedicated their time and efforts to provide information that is hopefully useful to seniors, their family members, caretakers, and really anybody who's interested.
Senior Moments, every Saturday morning at 7:30, right here on News Talk KVNU.
Get on board. The water is open. It's time to go boating and fishing and leave stress in our wake. Feel the wind as we ride and a fish on the line. Reel in our first catch and feel the sun at our backs. It's get out on the water season. It's time to get on board. Find out where to get on board near you. Visit Take Me Fishing and Discover Boating to learn more. And please recreate responsibly. Get on board. Get on board.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Coming up on the show, we're going to be talking about a lot of things. Fireworks, why do we love them? Why might we want to reconsider that love? A lot of good explanations and reasons to, on both sides of that. But more cities in Utah are considering foregoing official fireworks shows for their expense, for their effect on air quality. For a limited time, admittedly, but the effect is significant. And especially on children, and others very upset about this. Salt Lake announced today that for the 3rd year in a row, they'd be skipping an actual fireworks show and instead using a high-tech drone performance program, which is pretty cool if you're a nerd. But people love their fireworks. Why? Why are these so important to some people? Well, for some, it's just a political thing. It's something, the professional outrage crew out there, something to get upset about. But the rest of us, normal people, they're fun, right? They are something we enjoy as a celebration, or even just, well, to see, whether we're setting them off or not. Why? There is actually a reason for all this. So we'll be talking about fireworks, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the fun, coming up after these headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 4:30, and the news is brought to you by Roof Rescue. Families in Hiram and Ogden are mourning a 14-year-old boy who died at Hiram Reservoir. His father says he died in one of his favorite places to be. However, they still have a lot of questions about what happened. Craig Bowden told KUTV his son Connor was a wonderful, beautiful soul. He said his son had a close bond with all of his siblings, parents, step-parents, and grandparents, so the entire family is crushed and trying to take things one day at a time. Connor had an especially tight bond with his baby brother, Brigham. Craig and his son was able to have one of the best days of his life just before he went under the water at Hiram Reservoir, a place he loved visiting. That's why the family is confused about what happened. This is an area that he was very familiar with. He was a skilled swimmer. The medical examiner will pinpoint the cause of death, but Craig wonders if his son slipped before he went under. Craig said Connor will be buried in Hiram, and the family has chosen a funeral home. However, Craig said they're still trying to figure out how they will move forward without him. A family friend has set up an account at America First Credit Union to raise money for funeral expenses. A Venmo account was also set up to raise funds at Jessica Brockman 8. 4-year-old Houston Hampton remains in critical condition after he was kicked in the forehead by a horse and airlifted to Primary Children's Hospital last Friday. His mom, Cody Hampton, provided an update on Houston's condition. She said they would have a better idea of his prognosis in a couple of days. The doctors plan to remove bolts in his head, which would allow them to perform an MRI on his head and neck. She said when Houston was kicked, it fractured his skull, but surgeons said that fracture actually saved his life. The doctors had to remove Houston's skull cap to facilitate his brain's healing. They ended up removing 5% of his frontal lobe. On Sunday, Cody talked about how much Houston meant to their family. Cody said Houston kept the family on their toes and kept them all laughing. Sevier County community members had set up a donation account for the Hampton family, which was accessible at any State Bank of Southern Utah location, or donations could be made using Venmo, Cody-Hampton. And Salt Lake City International Airport has ranked as the 6th best airport in the country for summer travel in 2023. Forbes Advisor compiled a full report comparing the nation's 100 busiest airports using 2 key categories: on-time arrival performance and airfare price during the summer travel season. The top best airport was Oahu Airport in Hawaii. According to the report, 4 of the top 5 airports were ranked in the Aloha State. From data in June through August, Salt Lake City ranked as having 85% of on-time flights, 2.5% of National Aviation System delays, 4.7% of late-arriving flight delays, and 0.54% of flights canceled. To compare, the worst-ranked airport in Florida had almost 67% of on-time flights, 6.26% of National Aviation System delays, 15% of late arrival flight delays, and almost 2% of flights canceled. KBNU News Time is 4:34.
This is David from Roof Rescue. This past winter in Cache Valley was the worst in recent memory, reminding us of the sheer power of Mother Nature. Snow, ice dams, and record low temperatures left behind a trail of leaks, broken gutters, and damaged roofs. Let's get those issues inspected and addressed so that when next winter comes around, you can focus your attention on your family, the holidays, and winter activities instead of leaks, drips, and ice dams. Call today for your complimentary inspection at 435-999-4268 or visit us at roofrescueusa.com. Roof Rescue, providing watertight peace of mind.
The CEO of United Airlines says the FAA is to blame for thousands of canceled flights this week. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg's take?
Staffing issues at air traffic control are not the main driver of delays and cancellations in our system. But at the same time, I will say there have been issues, both with staffing availability and technology.
A Delta plane made an emergency landing at Charlotte Douglas International Airport this morning without its front landing gear deployed. At least 15 people were hurt when an Amtrak train struck a water truck and jumped the tracks in Ventura, California.
As firefighters have been moving from train car to train car, once they've searched a car to make sure there's nobody inside, they spray paint a big X on the side of that train car. A primary search was completed pretty quickly, ruling everybody was out. 3 of the Amtrak cars are tilting onto their sides a bit after the train hit a County of Ventura water truck.
ABC's Alex Stone. Patrick Leckleitner has been selected as the new head of Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
KBNU weather for tonight, partly cloudy skies, overnight low in the low to mid-50s, and then slight chance of a shower or thunderstorm in the afternoon on Thursday. Otherwise, mostly sunny, high temperature in the low 80s. Our high temperature this afternoon has been 77, and that's where we currently sit, 77 degrees at KBNU. KBNU weather brought to you by Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology. Turn life up. Schedule a free hearing evaluation with Dr. Paul Danes at Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology. Go to cachehearing.com. That's cachehearing.com. For the latest news 24/7, visit cachevalleydaily.com. Let's check Wall Street now with Edward Jones.
This is Ted Caron with Edward Jones Investments in Smithfield, bringing you the daily financial market report for Wednesday, June 28th. After a broad rally on Tuesday, major averages closed mixed on Wednesday, with the S&P 500 nearly flat, the Dow shedding 73 points, and the NASDAQ gaining 36 points. Rates moved down modestly, trimming yesterday's increase, with the benchmark 10-year Treasury yield settling below 3.75%, a level it's been bouncing around throughout June. Gold was down $5 to $1,919 an ounce, and oil was up $1.50 to $69 a barrel. Markets continue to take cues from the outlook for upcoming Fed moves. Fed Chair Powell joined other central bank heads for a panel discussion in Portugal on Wednesday, a discussion that yielded comments reiterating monetary policymakers' commitment to reining in inflation while attempting to evaluate and preserve economic stability. Soft landing hopes are reemerging. The latest economic readings lent some support to the glimmers of optimism around the potential for the economy to thread the needle of sustained growth amid tight monetary policy settings. Data on durable goods, consumer confidence, and housing sales all came in better than expected, which is showing up in the nearly 3-year high for the Bloomberg Economic Surprise Index. Our analysis continues to point to a slowdown in the economy this year, but a lift in manufacturing and housing activity is encouraging and supports our view that as consumer spending softens, previously weak areas of the economy could rebound, smoothing out the path for GDP and avoiding a more traditional recessionary downturn. This has been today's financial market report, brought to you by Ted Caron with Edward Jones, member SIPC, serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice. If you'd like additional information, please visit with any of the 9 Edward Jones advisors in Cache Valley, in Providence, Logan, and Smithfield.
My dealership just fixed this transmission.
We all know how it can be to go to the wrong place for transmission repair.
Just a shift solenoid.
Solenoid.
Get no credit needed financing, only a AA MCO. We all know how it can be to go to the wrong place for transmission repair.
Guy and his cheap transmission fluid.
Get no credit financing to meet your needs, only at AA MCO.
Celebrate freedom this year in beautiful Bear Lake with country music star David Nails. David Nails performing live Monday, July 3rd at Heritage Park in Garden City. Bring your blankets and lawn chairs. Activities start at 4. Free concert at 7:30. Yes, it's free. Food, fun, and fireworks and live music by country star David Nail. Monday, July 3rd. Go to bearlake.org for more information.
Welcome back to KVN News for the people. Fireworks, should we do away with them? I'm just saying it that way to be controversial, but 753-5868. There are some questions about this. Cities in Utah, for a lot of different reasons, especially in the last 2 years, have foregone even professional fireworks shows for fear of, well, igniting a wildfire. But also expense and new technology. Salt Lake City, third year in a row, the announcement came today, will be using this pretty high-tech. I saw some video of this. I've never actually seen one in person, but I saw some video of Salt Lake show last year, and they use drones. And it's actually pretty comparable to a fireworks display, visually at least. But it angers people. People got really upset at Salt Lake again today when the mayor announced that they weren't going to be doing this. Just on Twitter, especially, people just livid about this, and there's a reason. We love our fireworks, but there's a reason for that too, and that's where things get kind of interesting from a science point of view. So, first off, the argument for doing away with the professional fireworks shows that cities will often host, but also maybe even changing the public mindset towards big fireworks holidays. This is a $2 billion a year industry in the United States alone, and in the United States that means, in most states, 1 or 2 holiday weekends, basically. $2 billion a year industry, so it's big. And people spend a lot of money on the 4th and the 24th here in Utah. We can also now do a couple of other holidays too, but they're not as widely celebrated. But this is huge. It's a big industry, and what that dollar amount means is that people love their personal fireworks as well. But we all know that the personal fireworks in the driveway are fun, especially for the younger kids. And even as an adult, it's still fun to light the wick and see what happens, right? But it's traditionally not as exciting as one of those big $1 million productions that the cities will often put on, large cities at least. This got me curious. Why are people so invested in these? Now, there are some obvious parts of it. For many people, this is an act of patriotism to celebrate this way. But would celebrating with drones be any less patriotic? No. There's nothing about fireworks that has anything to do really with the Constitution or the country. That's just a tradition that erupted around it. And if we were to change traditions, you're still celebrating the same thing, right? So that one goes out the window as a justification. They're cool and fun. I think that one should stick as a justification. On the flip side, they do cause a lot of pollution. And one of the chemicals that lingers in the air for days after big fireworks holidays like the 4th is one called perchlorate. And this chemical actually messes with your thyroid, stops hormone production, can hinder growth and development in young children, even if you're exposed to it just for a night, because it stays in your body for about 30 days. Of course, they're air pollutants. They do contribute, a lot of pollution to the air. Bad air quality in Salt Lake is one of the things cited by the Salt Lake City mayor on top of, the drought concerns for the last 2 years. So these are significant things to consider. Fireworks days introduce about 42% more pollutants into the air than are found on normal days, and that can linger for a week, even 2 weeks after. And again, the chemicals that end up in your bloodstream from breathing this air can stay in your body for 30 days, sometimes longer, and they're harmful. So there was an article a long time ago, or a study a long time ago by Dr. Deanne Seidel, who I found it here. The study published by the Journal of Atmospheric Environment found that fireworks. So basically, in the study, they said when people think of air pollution, they think of smokestacks, automobile exhaust pipes, construction sites, and things like that. But they don't think of fireworks. What they found is that fireworks, a single firework holiday, was actually worse than all the rest of those things in that same time period. So, I mean, there is a significant negative to fireworks celebrations en masse when they're happening on this scale, at least. On the flip side, again, they're cool, they're fun. Why, though? That's what I got curious about. Why are people so invested in this? Why is it such a personal thing? Personal affront for many people when the Salt Lake mayor today announced that they wouldn't be doing an actual fireworks show. Or imagine the outrage that we'd probably hear if Logan City, they are doing one, by the way, but if Logan City said, we're not going to do it this year. They have in the past for fire concerns and more. And, of course, weather can cancel a fireworks show for fire concerns. That's always a given. If it gets a bit windy, correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, but I believe back when Logan City used to do Freedom Fire at the stadium, I believe that was even canceled once or twice due to wind, or called off early. At least. I don't, maybe not outright canceled, but I know at least once they ended the show really early due to wind.
Because outflow from a faraway thunderstorm or something.
Yeah,
winds were pretty strong. I do recall at least once or twice that happening.
Yeah, so I don't know about outright canceled, but I do remember at least once, maybe a few times, they cut it really short due to wind picking up. So this is to say you're not guaranteed. You don't have a constitutional right to a fireworks show. There are a lot of reasons we don't do these or cancel them or call them off, weather being the primary reason. But cost. Some cities throughout the United States have cut big fireworks shows due to cost. Logan did in a way. They went from a big, expensive Freedom Fire, single night festival style event to a traditional fireworks show that was a lot easier for residents to see and get to, and cheaper for the city. So there have been changes like that here, but no, in northern Utah at least, no cities that I know of have outright said we're not doing this anymore. Ones that always have, and cities who never have not started either. So we're about where we've always been. But what if Logan City came out and said, we're not going to do fireworks at all. It pollutes the air. It's a wildfire risk. It's just and we can rent this drone light show for a third of the cost. And that's cool in its own way, because it is cool in its own way. People would, not everyone, I think some people would be happy. Dog owners would be ecstatic. The science behind that, by the way, we'll get into too. So, I'll just throw that out. Dogs are caught off guard and upset by fireworks because of the sound. Basically, it's actually very harmful. It hurts their ears. It's not just unpleasant for them. It's painful when your ears are that sensitive.
Yeah, our dog growing up, Casey would kind of cower and hide behind the furniture.
Yeah,
hide behind the chairs and couches.
Yeah, that's and this, it's hard to confirm this kind of stuff with dogs because you can't talk to them. But veterinarians and pet behavior studiers of domestic pets, at least, say that one of the dogs being afraid of thunder and storms is usually actually an offshoot of their bad experience with fireworks. They associate the two. So dog owners would be happy about that, and they'd be happy if all their neighbors were at least more respectful of time constraints and things like that. But The general public, I'm guessing more people would probably be very upset if Logan City canceled their fireworks show and replaced it with a drone show. Again, got curious about why. Part of it, of course, is tradition. You know, we've always done this. We've always had fireworks shows, and people resist change. It's a knee-jerk reaction. We don't like change. But would it really ruin anything? I don't think so. I bet I'm in a minority on that. And there is a reason. And it's also science. And this is the coolest thing. So the answer to the question of why fireworks show, I'm talking the big, very expensive, usually city-sponsored and hosted fireworks shows, not the driveway fireworks you buy from the tent down the street or in the parking lot. I'm talking about the big, loud boom fireworks shows. Well, that loud boom is key, but it's a little more specific than that. And this is what was fascinating to me. It all comes down to that sometimes barely noticeable, but your brain notices, gap between the explosion of light in the sky and the loud boom. That it literally comes down to that. That's why we like these fireworks shows. And for the same reason that kids get addicted to video games, and any other example along these lines, dopamine. What happens is that it's like lightning and thunder. This has the same effect, although that has a tendency to scare us. With a fireworks show, it's a controlled environment. We're confident the professionals are in charge and we're safe. But our brain still has some by rote mechanisms that play out almost on autopilot. And one of those is that gap between the explosion of light in the sky and when your brain registers the sound of the boom. There's enough of a gap to create anticipation that triggers, activates a portion of your brain, a ball of nerves in your brain that is basically your fear detection center. And your brain, on autopilot, even though logically you can say to yourself, I'm perfectly safe here, nothing to be afraid of, your brain still goes through this process internally where that gap between the explosion of light and then the boom creates enough of what's called an anticipation of threat response. Your brain loads you up on dopamine. And dopamine is addictive. It's an addictive chemical. It regulates pleasure. Your brain does this to give you what you need to survive a threatening experience. Your brain, though, this automatic process in your brain doesn't realize you're sitting in a comfortable seat at a controlled, professionally run fireworks show. All it knows is something weird just exploded in the sky, and a split second later there was a boom. That doesn't match up with anything else I have in my catalog of things to be afraid of or not afraid of, and so I'm dumping out the dopamine. And that's literally what's happening in your head, and that is why you love fireworks shows. It scares you just a tiny little bit, but it's the dopamine. It's a chemical your brain releases that causes a sense of excitement, euphoria, feeling good, and it's addictive. So, there. I just took the fun out of fireworks shows for everybody. I want to hear from listeners, though. How would you feel? Logan City's not suggesting this, just to be clear. With the announcement from Salt Lake City that even though drought concerns aren't as serious this year as they were the last and the year before, the city is still foregoing an actual fireworks show in lieu of this high-tech drone show they did the last 2 years. And Mayor of Salt Lake City saying, in fact, fireworks shows are probably a thing of the past for the largest city in the state. If Logan City were to say something similar, how would you react? 753-5868. We'll be back right after this.
This radio station is proud to provide a patriotic soundtrack to this year's fireworks show from Logan's Willow Park, July 3rd, and the Hiram and Lewiston fireworks on July 4th. Listen to this radio station each evening at 10 for patriotic music and messages. Together, we'll honor our brave men and women who serve and celebrate the United States of America. Special thanks to these businesses for sponsoring this year's soundtrack. Cook and Sauter Foot and Ankle. Foot injury? Doctors Greg Cook and Travis Sauter can help. Visit cookandsauter.com. Schreiber Foods, providing job security and financial stability for Cache Valley families. Schreiber Foods is hiring. BD Auto and Salvage. Get paid top dollar for your junker, autos, and scrap metal. Join us as we celebrate the red, white, and blue and cheer the hopes and dreams that is America. Tune to this radio station July 3rd and 4th at 10 p.m. as we celebrate America the Beautiful.
John Weiss here from Heritage Auto. In a month, you'll either be driving a new Jeep or you won't be. And I promise, life is more fun in a Jeep. And right now is perfect timing because it's Jeep 4x4 season. Plus, we've got hometown deals on our full Jeep lineup, like the all-new 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited and Grand Cherokee L Limited. Both $5,000 total bonus cash allowance. Some restrictions apply. These deals won't be around forever. Come in to Heritage Auto today, your hometown dealer with the biggest deals.
Are you a hot sleeper? Warm summer nights can make it hard to sleep. UNI Furniture recommends sleeping cooler with a gel memory foam mattress. UNI features a copper-infused gel memory foam that helps with coolness and circulation. It moves better with you, giving you the best night's sleep. UNI is also the home of Chair Heaven. There's a reason they sell so many chairs, including recliners. For over 90 years, there's always been a better buy at UNI Furniture, downtown Logan.
The landscaping season is now in full swing, and Canyon Landscaping is still booking for this season. For over 2 decades, Canyon Landscaping has been Cache Valley's leader of new and existing home landscaping projects. Spots are filling fast, so don't wait any longer for your outdoor living to become an extension of your home. To get your project going, request an appointment online at canyonlandscaping.com or call 752-3838. Let's get started on your yard. 752-3838. Canyon Landscaping. Look for the leaf.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. 753-5868 if you'd like to weigh in. They are not, just to be clear, suggesting this, but how would you feel, how would you react if Logan City followed Salt Lake City's lead, as announced today by the Salt Lake City mayor, in just permanently ending city-sponsored fireworks shows, saying Salt Lake City mayor said, look, it's expensive for the city. Drone technology can recreate almost the same thing without a wildfire risk, without air pollution, and without the expense, and so we're just not going to do it anymore. That's the largest city in the state, where most of the people in the state live. There will be no big fireworks show for the 4th or the 24th. Now, of course, they're not outlawing within city limits personal fireworks or anything like that. There are restrictions. Here in Cache Valley, for example, the restrictions are basically what they usually are. Stay away from those drier, grassier, unincorporated areas. Be smart. Put your fireworks out. Wet them down before you throw them in the dumpster. All of those things. It's less of a wildfire risk right now this year headed into the 4th than it was the year before and the year before that. But the risk is not zero. Because though the grasses haven't dried out as much as they had by this time last year, they are still dry enough, and they are taller than they were last year. So be smart. Don't be that person, and just think it through before setting fire to that little wick. But how would you feel if Logan City said, enough, we're not doing this anymore? Couple of texts coming in from listeners here. One listener says, I would support it mainly because it is a lot of money for the city for a very short thrill. And that's a good point. It costs to length of show comparisons for fireworks shows. You could make an argument that it's not quite worth the investment. But again, they're cool and they're fun. I guarantee you I will be watching Logan City's show. And most people I know will be. And I'm not even a person that spends, last year I didn't spend any money on personal fireworks. Just because I feel bad bringing them home because I have dogs that don't like fireworks. But another texter here saying, this doesn't hurt anything, and as far as air pollution goes, it blows out so quickly. Yeah, I mean, that's true. It is a lot of pollution, air pollution. And it does blow out quickly. But again, some of the chemicals in fireworks that you can breathe in can actually stay in your bloodstream for a month or two. And one of the chemicals, I've now closed that tab, so I can't read the name again. One of the chemicals is known to inhibit thyroid hormone production. So basically, you're pausing growth and development in children for a month or two if that chemical gets in your bloodstream and hangs out there for that long. So it's not, without risk, but it does blow out quickly. I would also argue, like our winter inversion pollution collection, it blows out quickly to somewhere else, not just away magically. Final response here, and again, we can keep the phone lines open next hour if you want, 753-5868. Another listener saying that Logan City or all cities need to do something to give people an excuse to get out and celebrate. I think it's probably worth the cost. And that's a good point, too, because, these events do have a community building aspect to them. They do give people an excuse. And to be honest with you, some people don't have time to plan their own. So this is a way for them to still be a part of the celebration. So